Hello, my name is Simon Hughes and I'm pleased to present this video toolbox talk on behalf of the National Access and Scaffolding Confederation, introducing TG20 13. This eagerly awaited edition of TG20 is not simply an update or revision of the old suite of TG20 documents, but represents a set of new guidance. This is one of the most significant changes to the scaffolding industry in decades. It is recognised that the old Code of Practice, BS 5973, and subsequent editions of TG20 in 2005 and 2008 had a very narrow scope of standard scaffolds or basic scaffolds that could be built without design. This created many challenges for scaffolding contractors and notably placed a burden on the scaffolding industry and the limited design engineering resources. TG20 13 has been redeveloped to address these issues by extending the scope of standard scaffolds that can be built without design. Officially announced at the NASC AGM in Bristol on the 22nd of November 2013, entitled A Comprehensive Guide to Good Practice for Tube and Fitting Scaffolding. It comprises a suite of 4 elements: the operational guide, the design guide, a pocket user guide, and a revolutionary piece of software called the e-guide. The operational guide is intended to provide comprehensive good practice guidance for all those involved in tube and fitting access scaffolding. The operational guide is supplemented by the e-guide, which generates TG20 compliance sheets. The design guide is intended for scaffolding design engineers, temporary works engineers, and others interested in the design of scaffolding structures or the design and manufacture of scaffolding equipment. The Work at Height Regulations 2005, as amended, Schedule 3 Part 2, covers additional requirements for scaffolding. It requires that strength and stability calculations for scaffolding should be carried out, unless it's assembled in conformity with a generally recognised standard configuration. The TG20 compliant scaffolds are designed by calculation to conform to BSEN 12811. We are pleased to receive support from the Health and Safety Executive. Heather Bryant, Chief Inspector of Construction at the Health and Safety Executive, identifies that the Work at Height regulations require strength and stability calculations unless a scaffold conforms to a recognised standard. HSE acknowledge that TG20 has been written by the NASC to provide such a standard, and we are pleased to have involvement from the Health and Safety Executive within the Technical Committee and the TG20 13 Working Party. We also welcome support from the UK Contractors Group, who recommend the adoption and standardised use of TG20 within and outside of the construction sector, which will no doubt result in safer scaffolding. TG20 Operational Guide features compliant scaffolding. TG20 compliant scaffolds were previously referred to as basic or standard scaffolds. They have been designed, as mentioned earlier, by structural calculation in accordance with the British and European standard 12811. Any scaffold that falls outside of the scope of a TG20 compliant scaffold should be designed as a bespoke scaffold. Featured in Chapter 3 of the Operational Guide are compliance sheets. The NASC envisages that TG20 compliance sheets will become an integral part of all scaffolding operations in the future. They demonstrate compliance and that bespoke design is not required. It features a range of common scaffolds that are used throughout the UK. A wider range of scaffolds and variations are included in the TG20 e-guide. Design advice must be sought for any scaffold outside of the scope of a TG20 compliance sheet. The operational guide features a simplified wind classification. Wind exposure affects the maximum safe height of scaffolding and the tie duty, especially when the scaffold is sheeted or netted. A simple wind exposure classification is illustrated here and is used within the TG20 compliance sheets of Chapter 3. A more accurate wind analysis is used in the TG20 e-guide, which can result in increased safe heights and reduced tie duties. Further advice is provided for designers in the TG20 design guide. Wind exposure is classed as moderate, high or extreme and is colour-coded for ease of identification. Other factors to be considered are site topography, seasonal variations and the wind shielding effect in cities. We're now going to look at the compliant scaffolding types featured in TG20. The changes to standard scaffolds are far-reaching and affect most scaffolding types to varying degrees. Too numerous to include all of them in this short video toolbox talk. Independent tied scaffolding. It features unclad, brick guarded, debris netted or solid sheeted. Bay sizes up to 2.4 metres. Note there is no 2.7 metre bay size included. We see the welcome return of single bay facade bracing without the need for additional plan bracing. Lift heights commonly up to 2.1 metres, but also accommodating floor height lifts up to 3 metres. Safe heights from the operational guide up to 16 metres, or scaffolds up to 50 metres from the e-guide. Towers, we see changes to the safe height to base ratio calculation for static towers erected externally or with a wind load. We see compliant scaffolds for lift shafts, but mobile scaffolds in tube and fitting are no longer included. We see the welcome introduction of compliant interior access birdcage scaffolds, tied put-log scaffolds, freestanding independent scaffolding, stabilised with butting transoms and ground rakers, loading bays with variations for 10 kilonewton or 15 kilonewton loading capacity. Ladder access towers are butted to independent tied scaffolds and chimney stack scaffolding. We're now going to look at the scaffolding features within TG20. We see the welcome introduction of bridging with beams, with standard configurations for 2-bay bridges and 3-bay bridges using steel ladder beams or steel unit beams, and a design criteria for the use of other types of prefabricated beams such as aluminium beams. The use of prefabricated transom units within independent tied scaffolds, which are commonly used. Light duty protection fans for falling object protection. Pavement lifts up to 2.7 metres. Note that pavement gantries are still classed as a special scaffold and will require design. Cantilevered access platforms to the inside face of independent scaffolds. The use of inside board brackets, or as they're commonly referred to, hop-up brackets, up to 500 millimetres above or below the working platform. TG20 requires the use of compliant scaffolding equipment and specifies the standards that scaffolding equipment must be manufactured to. Scaffolding tube. TG20 compliant scaffolds only permit the use of the following type of scaffold tube: BSEN 39 Type 4 galvanised steel tube or equivalent. High tensile galvanised steel tube with a outside diameter of 48.3 mm and a nominal wall thickness of 3.2 mm in accordance with BSEN 10210 Part 1. The following types of scaffold tube may not be used without design input: BSEN 39 Type 3 steel tubes, aluminium scaffolding tubes, tubes of other dimensions, materials or grades such as black steel or glass reinforced plastic GRP scaffolding tubes. We're pleased to see that TG20 identifies different types of scaffold board or decking used for the construction of scaffolding platforms. Scaffold boards need to conform to BS 2482, but TG20 recognises the use of boards with equivalent structural properties, such as laminated veneered lumber scaffold boards or composite plastic scaffold boards, providing that their weight is no greater than a 2482 scaffold board. They have the same loading capability and the same target spans as conventional scaffold boards for the transoms that support them. We're now going to have a short demonstration of the TG20 eGuide software. This is a short demonstration of the National Access and Scaffolding Confederation's TG20 eGuide. The main purpose of the TG20 eGuide software is for producing compliance sheets. Chapter 3 of the TG20 operational guide contains compliance sheets for a range of common tube and fitting scaffolds, whereas the eGuide extends this range of standard designs, including some useful add-on options for which compliance sheets will also be provided. Once you have loaded and activated your software on a compatible computer or other electronic device, you'll reach the home page. To identify whether your required scaffold is a TG20 standard configuration or if bespoke design is required, you need to input data and select some simple options. So let's press the start button. Now you have a range of standard scaffold types to choose from. Let's choose an independent scaffold. Now you have to select the height of your scaffold. Choose the slider, adjust the slider at the side of the screen to choose your height. Notice that the illustration changes as you adjust the slider. We'll choose a simple 10 metre high 5 lift independent and click next. Now we have to choose the lift height. We can choose from conventional 2 metre lifts or floor height lifts up to 3 metres high. We'll choose the 2 metre lift option. Now we can choose the width of our scaffold. By adjusting the slider, we can choose the dimensions of the working platform from 3 boards up to 5 plus 2. For this example, we'll choose a 5 plus 1 inside board. Now we choose the required duty of our scaffold. Very light duty, general purpose or heavy duty. We'll choose a general purpose 2 kN per metre squared scaffold loading. Now we choose the transom type. We have options of a prefabricated transom unit or a conventional tube and fitting transom. We'll choose the tube and fitting transom. Now we choose how our scaffold is going to be clad. Is it unclad, brick guarded, debris netted or solid sheeted? We'll choose a brick guarded option. Now we have to consider the facade itself. Is it a solid impermeable facade or a permeable facade that the wind can flow through? We'll choose a solid facade option. Now we look at the options, the add-on options available to us. For this exercise we'll choose a 2-bay bridge and a pedestrian lift and click Next. Now we choose how we're going to stabilise our pedestrian lift. We'll choose a tied option with plan bracing. Now we have to select the number of lifts we're going to have above our opening, our bridge, our 2-bay bridge. We will choose for our 5-lift scaffold a 2-lift opening, which will leave 3 lifts supported by the bridge, and click Next. Now we have to choose the method of access. We've also got the option for a loading bay. We'll choose an abutted ladder access tower and click Next. As part of the wind calculation, we need to consider the location of our scaffold. Is it within the city, the country, town or woodland, or by the sea? We'll choose a town location. As part of the interactive wind map, we can identify through a Wi-Fi connection the location by simply inputting a postcode. The software automatically completes the wind load calculation. It identifies the wind factor, our altitude above sea level, and the seasonal factors. And there we have our compliance sheet. It contains all the essential information you need in order to build a compliant scaffold. The compliance sheets need to be read in conjunction with the advice given in the TG20 operational guide. Note at the bottom of the compliance sheets is a signature box. This can be completed by the scaffolding contractor and signed off as compliance for the scaffold that's required. Note there are additional compliance sheets for each additional element of your scaffold. These compliance sheets can now be saved as a PDF document . These can be emailed to a client, added to the risk assessment and method statements for the job, and also used as part of the pre-start briefing for the scaffolders. And to add another structure, you simply start again, and that brings you to the home page. We hope we have demonstrated the ease of use of the e-guide. For further information about TG20 and to obtain your copy, refer to the NASC website. Thank you for watching.